So why do foggy images always look so cool? At least for me personally, I think, I like fog very much to use in my images because you can easily focus on specific parts of your image, like in this case the 3 buildings, and you can also create depth in your image. As you can see, there's some kind of distance between those buildings, and you can show it by using fog. And yeah, the focus comes because you can soft out the background and also parts that are not too important to tell the story of the image. So fog can easily be added inside Photoshop. So this is the base that we are going to use as a starting point. Let's jump right in. So let me show you a bit around in this 3D scene. This was done in Cinema 4D, but it doesn't matter if you're using 3ds Max or Blender or any other software. It's pretty basic stuff. Just some Quixel mega scans here for the rocks, and I placed them so they would only look good for the camera. So you can see the whole scene really falls apart if you zoom out, but it doesn't matter because we only want this one shot here. And yeah, the buildings itself, they are inspired by some cool architects from Norway. I don't know how to pronounce their names, so I'll just link them in the comments so you can check out the project that these buildings were inspired from. So here you can see that I found this image here online. It was on Flickr, and I really liked the image. I really like the depth that it has and the fog that sits there in the background. And you can see this mountain through the fog. So I wanted to replicate that kind of. So this is what we are going to work towards. And let's start by masking out the background with the alpha channel. And I will, you can all download, as always, the file here with all the passes, so you can make your own version. But I won't be able to add all the images since they're not mine. But I can link you to where I found it from. So I'll just bring in the reference so that we once in a while can check and check the colors and the composition. So, and I also found this very cool looking mountain that I want to extract. So if you go to select and select subject, Photoshop has this cool feature to automatically select, in this case, the mountain, and give you a selection. So now we can make a copy using Command J and make a smart object from it. So now if we bring it in, we can place it here in the background. And of course now it has the wrong colors, and it will also disappear very much because we will place the fog in front of it. So now I'm just trying to figure out the right position for it, but we can always come back later and change it. But for now, I think it looks nice to place it like this. So now we can start to adjust the colors a bit. So I'm using a hue saturation, and the first thing is I want to bring down the saturation because we have to make sure that all we bring in fits to our rendering. So you can see the mountains in the image are much cooler looking in terms of color, and yeah, that's what I'm trying to create for the mountain in the background. So we can also use another hue saturation and color it a bit, so colorize it a bit using blue tones. So this looks more like it fits to our scene. So then I have this sky that is from the sky collection. I'm not sure I will link which collection it is. I'm not sure if it's in the free collection or in the Skies Photopack. But I thought this one looks nice because it has this kind of rain clouds to it. So I think it would be nice to, looks good on the image. So now I actually start to create our first fog. So let's make a new image here. And if you go to render and use clouds, you get this cool looking clouds that we can use for creating this cloud / fog structure here in the background. So you can take this, and you can see we only want the white parts, the brighter parts from it. So you can go in here to go into the channels, and if you hit Command and press on the thumbnail, you can select only the brighter parts, and now we can mask them and as a smart object. So we will convert it into a smart object, and now we can bring it in. So you can see this starts to look like somewhat the reference, but of course we need to make some adjustments. So I'm going to use a mask, and with a soft brush I'll just brush away the top here. And we can also add a new layer, and just with this soft brush I'm gonna pick a color from the sky, and with the soft brush I can just paint in some more fog here in the background. So this starts to feel nice, to look nice, and the fog and the brushes kind of look like what we have here in the reference. Of course, we won't do an exact copy, so I'll just use that as an inspiration, kind of. So I'm a big fan, as you know, of the check filters, and we can really make visible which colors are in our reference. So you can see the color in the reference looks a bit more cyan looking, or more green looking actually, than in our image, which is a bit more bluish now. And I want to try to extract the color from the reference. So then we can use this color for our image and apply it onto our fog. But first, let's make a copy of this fog layer. And yeah, I want to bring in some more fog, because as you can see also in the reference, the big mountain in the background gets blended away a bit more, and that's cool, because I want to have the focus here on the buildings. And also we can check the gray values, because our fog looks a bit too bright right now. So if we check the reference, we can see we probably should darken our fog a bit. So let's first of all start to organize the scene a bit, so that you guys can see what I'm doing, and you don't get confused with this hundreds of layers here. So let's organize the scene as we did in previous tutorials. So also I'm setting these folders here to normal. So if we change anything inside the folders, it won't affect the underneath layers. So And here also for the sky, I'm trying to make some changes to make it a bit darker maybe. And now for the fog, let's also change this to normal. And I want to use some curves and see if it looks good if I bring down the brightness a bit. And this looks a bit more like our reference. So we can also increase the size of the sky a bit more, because we don't want to have too much attention here for all these details here in the sky. We want those larger shapes composition wise. And also let me see. We can adjust the colors a bit more. So make it a bit more blue. And yeah, we can come back now, because it looks a bit darker here in our reference. So there's not as much detail as we can see now in our mountain. So I'll try to make that same effect by bringing down the brightness and bring up the darker parts a bit. So in the end we are reducing the contrast kind of, because we also want to make sure this mountain here in the back it's in a distance, so there shouldn't be too much detail visible. So let's start to assign some colors to our folders here. All right. So this starts to look nice, but there's still some things I wanna do, and here these gray areas here, they look kind of a moon landscape. So I want to introduce some green to this image, and I found this nice looking image here on Flickr, which I want to use. So I want to cut out some of those nice looking parts here, and I think they match very nice with the patches here that we have. So I'm going to select them, and now I'm going to also put this here in the background, on the middle ground. Also, I think this could look nice. So I found this image also on Flickr. Flickr can be a very nice source when you want to do some matte paintings and I want to extract certain parts. And of course you have to make sure that license wise you choose only the images that have Creative Commons that will allow you to extract certain parts or use the images for yourself. So now we have those meadow and grass brushes that we can use for these parts here, because right now it looks, of course, a bit too harsh, the edge. So we can make a selection here for the area we want to mask out. Yeah, this looks actually very nice. And you can see with the brushes, it's very easy to make it work. And we can also increase it a bit, because here I think the size should match our buildings, of course, which are not too big. And I want to also bring this inside a folder. And I want to make a copy to use this again here. And you can see you have this kind of curved element here in the background. And we can actually use this puppet warp function in Photoshop, which is very cool. You can pin certain parts and transform your layer, and therefore you can try to match the curved landscape here. All right. So let's also use our Meadow brushes here. First of all, I'm going to find the right position. Yeah, something like this. There will be more fog and we won't see too much of it. So, and also for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to do that a bit quicker, and you can totally give this a bit more time and make the details work. So I have some nice masks here that I was rendering with Corona, and these can come in very handy if we now want to integrate some photos here. So yeah, let's just roughly mask that in. Okay. Yeah, something like this looks good. All right. So let's switch this to normal. And let's make some adjustments to make it fit even more into the image. So I want to bring down the saturation and maybe play a bit on the hues. And we can of course also make it a bit more so we can also adjust it that it looks a bit more like our reference. So you can see it has a bit more contrast, and right now it doesn't really, the lighting doesn't really match our scene. So we can use this gray layer as shown before. It's just a 50% gray that we put on overlay, and with the dodge and burn tools we can basically paint in shadows and paint in light. So in this case I want to paint in some more shadows, because it's actually sitting there in between the rocks, and it has, right now it's a bit too bright because we were cutting it out from this open field kind of. So right now we need to implement some more shadows and darken it up a bit, so also that it matches a bit more the reference. And in the reference you can see we have this brighter parts that are being lit, and I want to replicate that in our image. All right. So now let's duplicate the sea depth pass here from our render passes, and you can see how cool this pass actually looks. It gives us this depth layers, and if we invert it and select it, we can use this as a mask and yeah, bring in some more fog here in the middle ground or the foreground of the image. But therefore I wanna make some adjustment here on the sea depth pass, so I'm quite bringing down the brightness of it so that it's not so strong in the foreground. So if we use this as a mask now, it will more affect the middle and background of our image. So you can see actually which parts will be affected if I colorize this selection. But we'll of course not make the fog as dense as a solid color, so we can just use a soft brush for that again. You could also work with some fog brushes or clouds brushes on a low opacity to create a fog, or to create foggy clouds kind of, but I think this can also look fake very quickly, so I actually like to work with just a simple soft brush for the fog, because especially in the foreground it can look very easily like smoke if you have this foggy or cloud brushes that have too much structure in some cases. So I like to use the soft brush for that and just play around with the opacity and the position for it. So you can see now we have the sea depth mask selected, and now we can paint in some manual fog here. And of course we can also come back to our clouds, and we can bring some of those clouds here and use the sea depth mask to mask those clouds. And right now this is of course a bit too much. We can use a simple soft brush again to mask most of it away. But you can see we are creating a bit more structure here for the fog, which is cool. All right. And we can also use a curves layer on top to bring down the opacity kind of. Actually, we are bringing down the brightness, but that's in this case the same, so it won't be that visible if it's darker. So let's call this foreground fog. And now we can I'm still not too happy here with the mountain, or well, I want to make it look good. And at this point I'm not too concerned about our reference anymore, because we have set up our basic or our most important elements, and of course you can come back to it and check what now needs to be done to make it look a bit more like the reference. But you can also choose your own style from here on. And yeah, I'm starting to work a bit on the colors, so I wanna work a bit on the warmer tones here that are only visible from the interior, and obviously this gives the image a very nice contrast. So we have this contrast between the warm, cozy interior and the cool palette here for our surroundings. And in the post-production process, I want to further enhance this contrast. So this you can do by specifically work on your palette and on your cooler tones and also on your warmer tones. And as I told you before, we can use this fog color and use an adjustment solid color layer here, and we can put this to hue and link this to our fog. So now our fog has a color applied that we can always come back and change. And I like to give it this more greenish look, like in the reference. So this applies also for the foreground fog. And also for the sky, can adjust the blues to look a bit more like the fog now. And now if we come back to our rendering, we could also adjust the blues that are mostly visible in the stone structures or in the boulders. And we can also adjust those tones to be a bit more greenish, like in our reference. And of course, if we have brought everything together, so now the stones, the fog, and the sky are having the same kind of color, now we can globally also change this later on to make it a bit more blue looking, but we need to bring it together, kind of. So now I'm introducing another gray layer because our stone structures are having an overall brightness that doesn't quite match the reference. We want them to look a bit more contrasty, so I'm going to paint in a bit those darker areas. So at the same time, the brighter tops of the rocks will stand out a bit more. And I think this is nice because it further enhances this concept of the image that we have this darker, cool looking landscape here, and in contrast our warmer interior. So and of course we can also use the dodge tool to further enhance the brighter parts and make them a bit more stand out and visible. Okay. Right, so I'm going to make the image a bit more contrasty. Also, if I compare the reference image, we can see the sky would need a bit more contrast. So I'm going to make an adjustment here for the sky. All right. So I know this is now getting a bit back and forth, but yeah, I'm just trying to zoom out or to squint my eyes and find things that I think that could be improved. So I'm copying one more cloud layer here and introduce some more fog. And also for the mountain, maybe it looks nice if it's even more blue. So I'm just trying to match all the elements and experiment with the values of it. So sometimes it's good to try out different things and just see if it works or doesn't. So I'm making the sky a bit brighter here. All right. Now also for the fog, I think it looks cooler if it's a bit brighter. And also, let's see if we can change the scale, the overall scale of the fog and the position a bit. Alright, so now with another selective color adjustment layer, I'm again working on the specific colors. So for example, for the cyans, I need to have a visual feedback on what looks good, and so I'm coming back in and just try to move those sliders and find a direction for the grading. So I just desaturated the sky a bit more, and maybe we can increase it even more to something like this. Okay, and also for the color, I think it looks cooler if it's a bit more bluish. Alright, and we can make the fog also a bit brighter. I think it's nice to put some more attention to the fog. And in contrast to that, we can darken our foreground a bit more to give the buildings even more focus. And also maybe reduce the contrast here for the mountain a bit more. So the next thing is I want to make a bit of a color balance adjustment here. So I'm give the shadows a bit more warmth and the lights a bit more blue, which will give me a tonal contrast for the image. Let's organize everything. Alright, this looks nice, I think. So there's still some stuff we can do. I selected those buildings to make them a bit brighter, to make them stand out a bit more. And also maybe we can add a bit more saturation to the wooden facade. So just a tiny bit to give this wooden material a bit more attention. And now I want to grab a color here from the interior. So a warm color, and I'm gonna put the layer mode to screen, and I'm gonna reduce the opacity, and then I'm going to brush in with a soft brush just a bit of, I would say, light haze. So because we have this atmospheric fog, some of the light would be visible in that fog, and that's what I want to replicate with that technique, or emulate with this technique. So yeah, it's up to you how much opacity you want to give that. Okay, so now I'm again creating another selective color adjustment layer to work a bit more on the blue tones. So you can see this is not a very straightforward process. Sometimes I'm also layering multiple color adjustment layers on top just to eyeball it even further into the direction I want in this case. So of course we can also use the check filter setup here to check what colors are in the image, and so I'm desaturating the vegetation a bit more, and now I want to bring in some decals. Maybe you've seen my previous tutorial series in which I explain how I'm using those to give the building some kind of a patina effect, some kind of aging. So I'm using this in this case to breaking up the surface, the perfect 3D surface here a bit. And typically you would have some visible aging effects here on the wood in this landscape. So there's lots of rain and humidity. So that's something we can also display with those decals, and it just gives you a hint of or signs of, or it tells a story that the building has been sitting there for some time, and in the best case scenario it looks a bit more convincing. So that's what I'm trying to achieve here with those decals. And of course, I just want this effect to be subtle. I don't want to overdo it. So the buildings should still look in a good shape, in a good condition, and not worn out too much. So let's organize the scene once again so that we don't lose track of what we are doing here, and we still can come back later and make some changes without searching too long. And don't forget to save once in a while. So another feature I think we have visible in the reference is we don't have this perfect smooth looking fog. There's some grain in the image that comes obviously from the camera or from the lens itself. So we have some ISO pixels in there, and I like to implement that also for our image. So let's grab everything, use Command Shift Alt E to make one layer from it and make a smart object from this layer. And now we can make some adjustments, and because it's a smart object we can also mask out those adjustments. So in the Effects tab you have this grain that you can just increase to your liking, so depends on your image resolution also, but I like to give it a bit more grain to make it feel a bit more manual and real, or not manual but analog, or as it would come from a camera. And also here in the Colors tab we can play a bit more with the overall colors. For example, make the blues a bit more bright. Sometimes I like to work with those camera raw color adjustments in the end. So these are just some adjustments you would not found in the adjustment layers, but inside of the camera raw color adjustments. And yeah, maybe we can give those blues a bit more saturation, and maybe it looks cool if we reduce the yellow tones a bit, because I know we have given the wooden facade a bit more saturation, but it looks more realistic if we desaturate it a bit. And also we can give it a bit of a vignette. Alright, cool. So now there's only one thing we need to do, and I want to punch in some contrast using a curves adjustment layer. And that's basically it for this tutorial, guys. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next tutorial. Bye!